Welcome, and thank you for joining me for another Traveler's Notes video. Today is a little different because it's a bit personal. I still have a lot of emotions attached to the time period where I met my higher self. I wanted to share the experience to show that it can happen, and it may help people. So I consider this an out-of-body experience and not a near-death experience, although an argument could be made that it was the latter. Meeting my higher self did change my life, and it did change how I view everything. In 2014, my whole life changed. What had happened was I went into premature labor with my firstborn daughter while at work. She was born feet first, which is bad. She got stuck, which is even worse. She only lived a few days. She couldn't regulate her body temperature because she had become stuck, and her lungs just were not developed enough to breathe on her own. 2 weeks after I gave birth, I was in surgery having my gallbladder removed. My gallbladder had become septic. Even though it was not the best time to have surgery as my body was still recovering, we had no choice. I slept for 2 hours longer than I should have after the surgery. That is when I met my higher self. At first, I was at a doorway. I saw my great-grandmother, who was over 100 years old at the time, at the doorway. She was sticking her toe over and then pulling it back. I knew this meant that she would cross over soon. I had no problem crossing the threshold. My grandmother didn't even see me. She was so focused on what she was doing. I found myself in a room, and there was a big observation window. Below was the earth. There was a woman, an older actress that I admired, and what I interpreted as an angel standing next to her. Now, I had heard of meeting the higher self in Buddhist teachings. It was said in passing with no real explanation. So it wasn't entirely outside my realm of knowledge. However, I never intended to meet my higher self because I didn't understand what it meant. Even as I said to the woman telepathically, which is normal in my dreams, "It's really nice to meet you, but I know you really don't like to be bothered." I realized with the knowingness that you have when out of body that this was really my higher self. She responded with, "Actually, I don't mind at all." All of the pain and suffering that I was experiencing came to the surface then. I sort of blasted her with the horror, pain, and suffering that I was experiencing in the form of a telepathic energy ball. She looked surprised and replied, "I had no idea. You see," she turned to the earth and I saw it zoom in and become a topographical map, and there were many lives at once playing out before us. I saw the course the avatar was supposed to be on, like dashes across the terrain, and the line behind them was solid. "To me," she explained, "the world is like Disneyland. Each life is a ride that I don't know how it will turn out." I saw there were intended paths for the different lives, but the avatars that we were watching sometimes veered off course from what was intended. I sensed that she found every twist and turn of the adventure thrilling. The courses of those lives had their highs and lows. There were surprises even to her in the way that the avatars reacted. What she conveyed to me was that she had no concept of good and bad experiences. What mattered most was the experience itself. Every event in an avatar's life was equally important and taught her something new about herself. I admit when I woke up and told my husband I had met my higher self, I was very disappointed. He was relieved I woke up, and the doctor commented that he had been a little worried. I thought there would be more to the experience. While a deep inner peace settled over me, it would take many years before I really understood the message. The heart of it was what I described, that there are no bad experiences as far as our higher self is concerned. The higher self doesn't hover over us like a helicopter parent trying to prevent us from falling, or guide our every step. If anything, my higher self seemed to have a hands-off approach. She seemed just amazed and surprised by the outcomes as I did, which wasn't very comforting at all. In fact, I was so disappointed by the experience that I didn't share it on my blog until much later. I never even thought about sharing it on YouTube until someone expressed that meeting the higher self is an aspect of the spiritual journey of alchemy. At the time, I didn't feel that my higher self had expressed anything important in that experience. It was only when I unpacked it many years later, when writing my book, The Purpose of Life, A Brief Scientific and Magical Guide to the Age of Aquarius, that I realized how valuable and integrated the philosophy that she had given me in that moment was in my psyche. I stopped labeling experiences good or bad. I simply would remind myself that experiences are only temporary learning experiences. I realized that every traumatic experience had taught me a lesson. The out-of-body experiences with my higher self didn't stop there. I had another one where I saw my higher self as a future version of myself. We were overlooking the world, and she'd walked up pushing a stroller with a baby girl in it with the biggest blue eyes and blonde hair. I understood this was a future version of myself and saw it as a promise that I would one day have a child. We were looking out over the world thinking how strange, wonderful, and challenging it all is, and I understood my future self was going through her own challenges. My oldest daughter is now 5. She has big blue eyes and blonde hair just like the out-of-body experience. Eventually in my out-of-body experiences I integrated my higher self so there wasn't anyone to meet. I started experiencing things as an energetic ball of golden light. I went back to the time before I incarnated on Earth. I don't remember there being a lot, just a parental figure that was also a ball of light, but a white color instead of gold that didn't know I could create like it could. A sibling ball of light, and vaguely another parental type figure with its ball of light. Many of my out-of-body experiences were a bit boring. Going to Egypt out-of-body proved to be disappointing. While I saw things there I later verified with research, it didn't feel all that real. I learned pretty fast that it's far better to experience things on Earth in the flesh than as a soul. A big turning point, and the point where I stopped having out-of-body experiences was when my higher self realized there are far more things beyond Earth, some ultimate reality, that I could return to instead of reincarnating on Earth again. I call this the return, and it was a big moment on a soul level. It was as though my soul really only thought that there were only experiences on Earth, as though there weren't more experiences to have elsewhere. Instead, I felt my soul become excited by the prospect of experiencing something new, something beyond Earth, and returning to a primordial place to discover its origins. I realized in my wanderings that my soul was very immature on a soul level. The experiences on Earth had taught me a lot, but hadn't really matured my soul. The only way to do that was if I returned to the place I came from. I think that will be when I'm done with all of the incarnations. However, I thought meeting my higher self was going to be the end of my out-of-body journeys. I haven't had an out-of-body experience for a while now. Aside from the rare ones when I learned my soul's history, they became a bit boring. I can lucid dream and direct my dreams, but I don't do that as much anymore either. I prefer to let my dreams come naturally. There are 3 different types of sleep I experience. Dreams where I process the day, prophetic dreams usually about events that happen very soon after I dream about them, and the out-of-body experiences. I mostly have the first type of dream these days. So that is what I wanted to share with you. I have no desire these days for out-of-body experiences. In a lot of ways, it served its purpose. I have a deep peace in life these days. That was the greatest gift of all these experiences. I see all of us as immature souls doing the best we can with what we have. I believe people are inherently good and the heroes of our own personal stories. The first lesson, however, remains the strongest, that there are no good or bad experiences, but all are learning experiences. Of course, all these experiences and my research has led me to the theory that I share in my book, The Purpose of Life, A Brief Scientific and Magical Guide to the Age of Aquarius. So if you want to read about that theory, I suggest you check out my book. Well, I hope you enjoyed this traveler's notes. It was just easier to write it out, share the audio, and add in pictures I took of nature. I wanted this to be a relaxing experience. Writing and reading it was the only way to ensure I would remember everything instead of rambling. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, be sure to hit the like button. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. Bye for now.